and this gets the most strong fine, most strong sanctions. Hello guys, welcome back to ESENtaxa. Andre Papito here, and in this video I'm going to talk about the Inpatriate regime, and in particular what happens if you fail to fulfill all the requirements after having applied for the Inpatriate regime. So what happens if you don't provide a self-eligibility test or a simple eligibility test with us, and by mistake you don't respect the law, you forget some requirements, and basically the Italian tax agency came after you after a random check after 2, 3, 5 years, where wants from you all the documentation that you should have archived in order to pass the audit and see what are the sanctions, what is the fine, and what is the legal interest that you have to pay in case of failing this audit, okay, on the Inpatriate regime. Now, if you're in this channel, ESENtaxa talks about how to optimize taxation in Italy, how to relocate in this country to pay less tax possible. We optimize your taxation if you're already in Italy, or if you want to move into this country, we plan a long tax strategy in long term, for years, 5, 10 years. And we also cover jurisdictions such as Belgium, Albania, and Portugal. I'm going to show you with numbers, very quickly, very easy, what happens if you fail the audit on the Inpatriate regime. A lot of you guys ask me, but what is this big fine? Because whenever we talk about the Inpatriate regime, I always refer to big fines. You have to be careful, you have to apply the Inpatriate regime eligibility test, because otherwise you will get a huge fine, plus legal interest, plus all the money that you have to give back to the state, okay? Because it's a big tax benefit, and whenever you apply in Italy for big tax benefits, the sanctions are high, the fines are high, and you have more chance to get controls, to get controlled and get audit or documental checks, etc., etc. Now, simply with numbers, let's imagine this scenario in which you are a freelancer, you move to Italy, and you open a VAT position, and you self-certify that you have all the requirements for the Inpatriate regime. Okay, so scenario of freelancer. And imagine you had a profit of 100,000 euros to simplify the calculation. If you move to Italy without applying the Inpatriate regime, you will have an RPF that is the ordinary taxation, which is in brackets, you know, so it's between 23% up to 43% based on your revenue. And 100,000 euro in the Italian RPF 2023, it's a big 35,900 euro, which is basically almost 36% in terms of tax pressure, okay? So this is the case when you move to Italy without applying any tax regime, without applying the Inpatriate regime. Instead, if you relocate in the south of Italy, you will get discounted 90% of your income, which means that only 10,000 euro will be taxable under RPF taxation. So with Inpatriate regime in the south of Italy, you're not taxed on 100,000, but on 10,000 euro. And 10,000 euro on the RPF, sorry, it's not anymore this 35,000 euro 900, of course, because you don't have the 35% rate, but you have the lowest tax rate. You have 23%. And this is only 2,300 euro in tax to pay. Over 100,000, because your taxable income, it's just 10,000 euro, okay? So if you want to know more about the Inpatriate regime, in this channel we talk extensively about this tax regime, and in the description below this video you will find reference and links to our previous videos in which you can go deep dive on this tax regime to learn more about it. Now, as you can see, 2,300 euro over 100,000 euro is just 2.3%. Tax pressure is almost nothing, and this is a big tax discount that Italy allows you to receive if you fulfill all the requirements of the Inpatriate regime, if you basically pass the eligibility test of the Inpatriate regime. Now, let's see what happens if you fail, if you forget requirements, if you thought to self-certify that you have all the requirements, hoping that nobody is gonna check you. Okay, so let's see exactly what happened. I made two scenarios, the scenario with the lowest fine and the scenario with the highest fine, because the Italian tax agency has an interval between 90 and 180% as a fine. And now I'm going to explain you how you have to use these two calculations. So the fine could be the lowest could be 90% and the highest could be 180%. So you can get this 90% fine. Now I'm going to explain you on which number you have to calculate this 90%. When you, for example, you miss only one requirement, while 180% when you basically miss all the requirements or the most important requirements. Maybe here you just forgot some tax declarations which were hidden in the law, and they might be more soft with you, but it's still a huge fine. And now I'm going to explain the numbers. So don't be, you have to be scared because here we're going to lose a lot of money. Why the sanction is very high? Because if you self-certify something that is not true, it's called in Italy the unfaithful declaration, and this gets the most strong fine, most strong sanctions. So let's imagine this scenario, the softest one. So 100,000 euro is your revenue. You're supposed to pay 35,900, but you paid only 2,300 euro because you applied the Inpatriate regime. So you saved, thanks to the Inpatriate regime, something like 33,600 euro in terms of taxes. You save this amount of money, okay? So first things that you have to do when they found you not respecting all the rules, all the criteria, you have to give back this number. So you have to give back 33,600 euro, which is the difference between 2,600 and what you have paid in case you didn't apply for any Inpatriate regime. So this is the first amount of money to pay. Then you have to pay the fine, the big fine, which is 90% of this number. 90% of this number. So this is 30,240 euro. So this is 90% of this number. 90% of what you should have paid. 90% of the taxation that you saved, basically, thanks to the false application of the Inpatriate regime, for the failing application to the Inpatriate regime. And then you pay the interest, legal interest, that might change based on the inflation rate. So let's imagine they caught you after 5 years, and the average of the legal interest is like 2%. Average of maybe can be 3%, 1% based on the tax year that you have you passed. For example, they check you after 5 years, so you had 5 years of delay of not having paid this amount of money. So the interest are also calculated on this amount of money, which we can imagine a considerable 2%, which is the average, for 5 years, okay? Because let's imagine that the Italian tax agency, this is the worst case scenario, the Italian tax agency can have up to 5 years of time to check you back. So this is 3,360 euro. The total of this is 67,200 euro. So if you fail the Inpatriate regime eligibility test, in the best scenario, you're gonna pay for this example, 67,200 euro, which is basically 62% tax pressure, okay? Because you paid the huge fine and interests, okay? So now you have the number of this huge fine that in each video I always refer to. 30,000 euro for this specific case plus 3,360 for legal interests, okay? So this is the best case scenario. So in case you just miss one requirement, you just forgot one tax clarification. This is based on the functionary in the Italian tax agency. Somebody could be a little bit more strong, somebody's a little bit more strict, somebody's less strict. But anyway, in the good case, in the best case scenario, you're gonna pay this big 90% of the money, of the number, calculate on the number which represents the tax that you have, that you evade, because it's basically a tax evasion actually, because you false self-certified, you failing your self-certification of being eligible for the Inpatriate regime. And now let's calculate the worst case scenario, when you don't respect at all any of the requirements, or you don't respect multiple requirements, or the most important one, for example, the one that you don't stay in Italy for more than 2 years, you will stay less. Okay, again, 100,000 euro, you have to give back 33,600, which is again the difference between what you have paid already and what you should have paid in ordinary cases. The fine, it's 180% of what you should have paid, and here it's 60,000 already, 480 euro, plus 2% of 5 years of this number, and this is 3,360 euro. So 97,440 euro. Basically, everything that you have earned has to be given back to the Italian state. Now, you have to be very careful with the Inpatriate regime. You don't have to mess up with documentation that needs to be archived at the beginning of your Italian journey. We, here in ESENtaxa, we explain you exactly what is the documentation that needs to be archived, translate. We provide you a Inpatriate regime eligibility test in which you can be safe and bulletproofed against the Italian tax agency control and eventual check or documental checks, which is the most common one. So basically you will receive an email, or your accountant will receive an email in which they will ask you all the documentation that contains the proof that you have respected all the requirements to access the Inpatriate regime. Otherwise, you're gonna pay something between this amount of money up to this amount of money. Now, how you can avoid this? Here in ESENtaxa, we have prepared for the eligibility test an online course. It's a small online course in which is concentrated all the rules, all the scenarios in which you might fall, and all the cases and all the documentation that you have to archive in order to avoid this kind of bad situations, okay? So in the description below the video, you will have this online course. It's very, very cheap, because if you invest a very small amount of money on this mini course, you will be bulletproofed against this big fine that you have seen here in this board, okay? So we want to make sure that our client doesn't have any bad surprise while living in Italy, while they're applying the Inpatriate regime. Moreover, if you're already living in Italy and you have already applied the Inpatriate regime and you want to make sure to have all the requirements in order to avoid this kind of situations, you can contact us, or you can purchase this course in which you will automatically understand if you have correctly applied the Inpatriate regime, okay? You can also have some times before the end of the tax years or before the deadline for the tax file return declaration, in which you can correct, we can amend, we can fix eventual mistakes, eventual things that basically you have done without your will, because basically your accountant didn't know certain rules, and we can do it before the latest deadlines and avoid, again, these kind of situations, okay? I hope I give you the full picture with this video about the Inpatriate regime. Now, if you're following our channel, you know what is the good of this tax regime, what is the worst with this tax regime. You have to be careful when you apply this regime, and we are here to help you and to avoid to have bad surprises. For anything else, if you like this content, if you like ESENtaxa, notification bell, like button, and subscribe the channels to be always updated whenever we release this kind of content. See you to the next video.